Have you ever stopped to reflect on the true weight of forgiveness? And I'm not talking about that superficial kind of forgiveness, the one where you say, it's okay, just to move on, or merely for the sake of politeness. True forgiveness is deep, painful, and goes far beyond a simple word. It requires you to dive into your emotions, to face the pain, the anger, and often the resentment that has been built up over the years. Now, think for a moment. What does it really mean to forgive? Have you fully surrendered to forgiveness? Or have you stayed on the surface, as if it were something simple? Most people believe that forgiving is just about forgetting what happened. But true forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's not about pretending the pain never existed. Forgiveness is a process of liberation. And believe me, it starts within you, not with the other person. When you decide to truly forgive, you are doing much more than simply giving the person who hurt you another chance. You are, in a way, setting yourself free. Forgiving is like removing an immense weight you carry inside, something that drains your energy and your inner peace every day. This weight can manifest in many ways: anger, hurt, sadness, bitterness. Each of these feelings is like an anchor, keeping you tied to an experience that often has already passed, but continues to affect your life. Forgiveness is not easy, and that's why many people avoid it, postponing the decision to forgive, hoping that time will heal the wounds. But time alone doesn't heal anything. Time just passes, while the wounds remain open. What heals is forgiveness, and forgiveness requires courage. Courage to look pain in the eye and decide that you will no longer be controlled by it. Courage to free your soul from the invisible chains that hurt imposes. But maybe you're wondering, why should I forgive? Why does someone who hurt me deserve my forgiveness? The truth is, often forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. When you forgive, you're not doing a favor to the one who hurt you. You're doing a favor to yourself. You're opening the door to healing. When we hold on to resentment, the only person who truly suffers is ourselves. The other person may not even remember what they did, or continue on with their life as if nothing happened. But as long as you hold on to anger and resentment, it's you who will live with the pain. I know, it may seem difficult. It may seem like forgiveness is too much of a sacrifice. But believe me, forgiveness is the only key that will release the weight you carry. It is the liberation of your own heart. It is the healing you've been seeking, but perhaps have been unable to find, because, unknowingly, you've been holding on to the pain. In this video, we will explore forgiveness in a different way. We will understand how it can be a game changer in your life, a process that will not only heal your emotional wounds, but also renew your soul. What you're about to learn here will change your perspective on life, faith, and love. It will transform the way you view the situations that caused you pain, and most importantly, it will set you free from that pain. So, if you're ready for this transformation, if you're willing to understand how forgiveness can heal your soul, I invite you to continue watching until the end. Because what you learn here can, indeed, change your life forever. Often, we are led to believe that forgiving is something simple. Oh, just say you forgive and move on. It seems simple, doesn't it? It's easy to say, but extremely difficult to apply. Forgiveness, in the popular view, is treated as an instant act, as if it were just a word spoken into the wind. But the reality is much more complex and profound. True forgiveness is not a momentary decision. It's not something you say out of politeness, nor something that can be done hastily. True forgiveness requires internal work that cannot be rushed. It demands facing the pain, the deepest feelings you've hidden, the anger that, many times, you thought you couldn't control. Forgiveness is not simply a choice. It is a journey of healing, of liberation. And that journey is unique for each person. The first fallacy we need to break is the idea that forgiveness is a passive action, something you do automatically, without effort. Oh, I'll forgive and everything will be fine. Forgiving is more than just forgetting. It's an active decision. It means letting go of the pain, not because you agree with what happened, but because you choose not to let it control your life. True forgiveness is an act of courage, not weakness. It requires that you face the wound head-on and make a conscious decision to release both the other person and yourself. Many people, when trying to forgive, still find themselves trapped in a cycle of negative emotions. They try to forgive, but end up returning to the hurt and resentment because the forgiveness was incomplete. The pain wasn't addressed, the feelings weren't processed. The person says they've forgiven, but deep down they still hold a grudge. This kind of forgiveness is superficial. It's a mask we put over our pain to try to move on. But the truth is, the pain is still there, eating away from the inside. And this is where another fallacy comes in. The idea that forgiveness means forgetting or letting it go, as if nothing happened. Forgiving doesn't mean you are validating the behavior of the one who hurt you. It doesn't mean you agree with the harm that was done to you. Forgiving is, in fact, a way to protect yourself, not allowing the suffering of others to destroy your peace. Forgiving is allowing time and healing to do their work, without carrying the marks of the past into the future. That's why, when someone tells you that forgiveness is easy, it may be time to reflect. Genuine forgiveness is indeed an act of decision, but it requires more than just words. It demands action, effort, and often more than one step. Don't be fooled by the idea that it's something immediate. Forgiving is a process, a journey that requires patience and, above all, self-awareness. If you're feeling lost on the path of forgiveness, if you've been trying to forgive but always feel like the pain comes back, don't blame yourself. Forgiveness is a continuous practice, a spiritual discipline that you will learn to incorporate into your life. But, over time, it will heal your wounds in a deep and true way. Now, I invite you to reflect. Have you been treating forgiveness in a superficial way? Have you been allowing true healing, or just covering up the pain, trying to move forward? This is the moment to face the truth about forgiveness, and with that, discover the real strength it has to transform your life. Now that you understand that forgiveness is not a simple act, but a journey, it's important to understand what it truly represents. Forgiveness is, above all, an act of healing. Don't be fooled into thinking that, by forgiving, you are only doing something for the other person. Forgiveness is, in fact, one of the most powerful forms of healing you can offer yourself. When we are hurt, whether by words, actions, or attitudes of others, the pain we feel is not just physical. It is emotional, mental, and spiritual. And often, this pain accumulates over time, forming an invisible barrier that prevents us from living fully. Hurt and resentment keep us tied to the past, preventing us from moving forward. But by forgiving, that barrier begins to fall, piece by piece, allowing healing to flow freely in our hearts. Forgiveness, then, is not just a moral obligation or something we do to please someone. It is a process that frees us from the pain we carry. It helps us reconnect with our essence, with the inner peace we often lose. Forgiving is not forgetting what happened, but choosing not to be enslaved by that pain any longer. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You begin to feel the weight of the hurts, frustrations, and old grudges being lifted from your heart. Imagine that your soul is like a vessel. If that vessel is filled with resentment, anger, and hurt, there is no space for love, joy, or peace. Forgiveness acts as a filter that cleanses this vessel, allowing the purity of peace and divine love to fill your being. This doesn't mean that the wounds heal instantly or that the pain disappears overnight. Forgiveness is a process of purification that gradually restores the areas of your soul that were damaged by pain and bitterness. By forgiving, you choose not to allow the suffering of the past to continue dominating you. When you don't forgive, you remain trapped in a cycle of eternal suffering, where the other person often doesn't even remember the pain they caused, but you remain captive to that memory. Forgiveness, then, becomes a key to freedom. It is not an act of weakness, but of great strength, as it requires courage and authenticity. Forgiving also allows you to free yourself from expectations. When you forgive, you release the expectation that the person who hurt you should behave a certain way, or that the pain you suffered should be compensated in some way. Forgiveness is, above all, a choice not to let the other person control your inner peace. When you forgive, you freely choose to be greater than the pain. And this, in itself, is one of the greatest forms of spiritual growth you can achieve. Healing through forgiveness, therefore, is not an immediate solution, but an ongoing process that unfolds as you decide to forgive. This may happen gradually, but with each step you take, your soul becomes lighter, purer, and more connected to the peace that only forgiveness can bring. Now, ask yourself, have you given yourself the chance to be healed? Have you allowed forgiveness to heal the wounds of the past? Or are you still trapped by the weight of unresolved pain? Forgiveness is not just a gift for others. It is a gift for yourself. Now that we know forgiveness is an act of healing, the big question is, how can we apply this forgiveness in our daily lives? It is not something that happens overnight, and the process of forgiveness begins with small daily decisions. Often, we carry wounds and resentments that affect our reactions in daily life without even realizing it. When someone hurts us, the temptation is to let the pain control us. However, forgiveness needs to be a constant practice, not something that happens only in moments of deep reflection or specific situations. Each time the pain of the past surfaces, you have the opportunity to choose. Will you allow it to continue ruling your life, or will you make the decision to forgive and move forward? The practice of forgiveness is not automatic. It requires effort, it requires intention, and often it requires repetition. It's essential to understand that forgiving is not forgetting, nor is it a mere formality. By forgiving, you are making a conscious decision to release the weight you've been carrying, to free the one who hurt you, and, more importantly, to free yourself. Every time you feel anger, pain, or hurt, and choose to forgive, you are strengthening your soul and taking one more step toward healing. With every small act of forgiveness, whether with a friend, a family member, or even with yourself, you begin to transform your life. Forgiving is a process that builds, one that becomes more natural as you practice it. Don't blame yourself if, at times, you find it hard to forgive. The important thing is to keep trying, to continue choosing peace over hurt. Forgiveness, then, doesn't have to be something grand. It can be applied in everyday moments, in simple gestures. When someone offends you, when someone disappoints you, when you feel wronged, every time you choose to forgive, you are becoming spiritually stronger. Daily forgiveness will gradually set you free, bit by bit, until you realize that the pain of the past no longer holds power over your life. Thus, forgiveness becomes a daily practice of self-liberation. And over time, you will notice that the wounds begin to heal, that the weight starts to disappear, Forgiveness will transform your life, helping you live in peace with what happened and making you lighter with what's to come. When you decide to forgive, you're not just releasing someone from the burden of guilt. You are allowing yourself to be reborn. Forgiveness is a process of transformation, an opportunity to leave behind everything that prevents you from living fully. Forgiving is not forgetting what happened, but choosing not to let the past control your life. And by doing so, you experience an inner rebirth, a sense of freedom that only forgiveness can provide. Every time you choose to forgive, something within you changes. You begin to release emotional blockages, resentment, and the pain you've accumulated over time. Forgiveness is like a flame that burns the chains of the past, freeing you for a new future. It allows you to reconnect with your essence, with your inner peace, and to begin living without the weight of past hurts. Forgiveness renews you because by letting go of the pain, you create space for healing. And this healing goes beyond emotional wounds. It affects the way you see life, people, and most importantly, yourself. When you forgive, you begin to realize how the weight of the hurts wasn't just something external, but something you were allowing to carry inside you. Forgiving is like cleansing the soul, like doing a reset on your life, and by doing so, you give yourself the chance to start over. Imagine that with each forgiveness, you erase a bit of the pain that defines you. You are no longer a victim of what happened. You are someone who chooses to be greater than the pain. And that is liberating. Forgiveness doesn't erase the memories or the marks left behind, but it redefines the way you see these experiences. It doesn't allow what happened to determine your future. This rebirth is your soul freeing itself, restoring and renewing itself. By forgiving, you're not just letting go of suffering. You're preparing yourself to live with more lightness, more clarity, and more joy. Forgiving allows you to be reborn because you leave behind what holds you back from moving forward. When you forgive, you choose to live with a purer heart, a stronger heart, and a heart more prepared for the future. Forgiveness is not just a decision for the moment, but a choice that resonates throughout your life, bringing true and deep transformation. By forgiving, you become a new person with a new beginning, freer, happier, and at peace with your journey. Forgiveness is a practice that goes far beyond a simple act of kindness. It is one of the most powerful pillars for emotional and spiritual growth. Often, when we think of forgiveness, the first idea that comes to mind is that we are doing a favor for the other person. However, forgiveness, in reality, brings immeasurable benefits to ourselves. It not only heals the wounds of the past, but also opens doors to a fuller life, with more peace, joy, and prosperity. Psychological and spiritual studies have shown that forgiveness is directly linked to our mental and physical health. The act of forgiving reduces stress, anxiety, and depression. This is because when we hold on to grudges, our body and mind enter a constant state of tension, feeding negative emotions that affect our health. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases this tension and brings a sense of lightness. It is like an emotional release that helps us heal not only the soul, but also the body, as our emotions are interconnected with our physical health. Moreover, forgiveness has the power to restore relationships. It's not easy, we know that. But when we manage to forgive someone, or even ourselves, we create the opportunity for a genuine reconciliation, which can often be transformative. Relationships are often marked by misunderstandings, hurts, and mistakes, but forgiveness paves the way for healing and the restoration of a stronger, healthier bond. By forgiving, you are actually allowing love to prevail, not resentment. Forgiveness also makes us more empathetic. When we forgive, we begin to understand that people, just like us, make mistakes. This makes us look at others with more compassion, instead of judging them harshly. By forgiving, you not only free yourself from pain, but you also expand your ability to love and understand others in their flaws. Forgiveness gives us a new view of the world, one full of mercy and acceptance. Furthermore, forgiveness strengthens our relationship with God and with our faith. The Bible is clear in teaching us that forgiveness is a fundamental part of the spiritual journey. Jesus teaches us that forgiving is essential for our own liberation. In Matthew 6:14, he tells us, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." When we forgive, we're not just fulfilling a commandment, we are aligning ourselves with God's will for our lives. Forgiveness brings us closer to God, for He is the perfect example of forgiveness, having forgiven us first. Forgiveness also teaches us to live in the present. When we don't forgive, we remain trapped in the past, reliving the pain and hurt every day. But by choosing to forgive, you free yourself from those memories that bind you to what can no longer be changed. Forgiveness then becomes a key to the future, for it frees us from the past and allows us to live with more clarity, more purpose, and more lightness. Every time you choose to forgive, you're giving yourself the chance to grow, to become stronger and more whole. Forgiveness is a form of maturation, a way to heal internal wounds and create space for peace and love. And as you forgive, you will feel the power of God in your life, guiding you and strengthening you to continue your healing journey. Therefore, forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It not only transforms your emotional and spiritual life, but it also has a physical impact, healing both body and soul. By forgiving, you free yourself, you are reborn, and you begin to live a richer, fuller, and more peaceful life, both with yourself and with others. And as you practice forgiveness, you will discover that this liberation is, in fact, a continuous path of growth and drawing closer to God. We come to the crucial point of this journey of forgiveness, the profound and transformative impact it can have on your life. We're not just talking about an act of mercy, but a process that changes the way you live, the way you see yourself, and the way you relate to others. Forgiveness is not just a way to move on. It is the key to a new beginning, a complete, fresh start for your soul. The transformation of forgiveness begins when you surrender to it. When you decide to take the first step, something incredible happens. The weight of pain and resentment begins to dissipate. You begin to realize that by forgiving, you're not just freeing others, but you're freeing yourself as well. This process of liberation is, in fact, an internal transformation that affects every area of your life, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Forgiving is more than just a momentary decision. It's a shift in perspective that lasts a lifetime. You begin to see the world in a lighter, more compassionate and loving way. When we forgive, our soul is elevated, and we begin to live with more purpose, more clarity, and more gratitude. Forgiveness brings us closer to our true essence, which is peace. It removes the obstacles we've built over time and allows us to live with more authenticity. This rebirth is liberating. Imagine how much lighter your life would be if you were no longer controlled by anger and suffering from the past. Forgiveness allows you to free yourself from those invisible chains that have kept you tied to a past that no longer belongs to your reality. And by freeing others, you also free yourself. With each step you take toward forgiveness, you begin to experience a growing sense of peace. The stress and anxiety that once seemed inseparable from you begin to dissipate, as if your soul is finally breathing freely. Forgiveness brings a sense of healing, not just emotionally, but physically as well. The body and mind begin to reflect this inner peace. When you free yourself from anger, you open yourself up to love, joy, and balance that once seemed distant. Forgiving also brings a new perspective on others. When we forgive, our empathy grows, and our ability to understand the flaws of others expands. We become more humble and compassionate. The pain we've carried makes us more sensitive to the struggles of others, creating a space of understanding and genuine connection. Forgiveness transforms us into more whole people, more connected to the world around us. But perhaps the greatest transformation forgiveness brings is the restoration of our relationship with God. The practice of forgiveness aligns us with divine principles and brings us closer to the heart of God. He is the perfect forgiver, and when we forgive, we reflect His image in our lives. When we forgive, we become closer to His peace and His unconditional love. Throughout this journey, you've learned that forgiveness is not a simple formality. It is an act of courage and faith. It is a continuous process of healing, renewal, and liberation. And as you apply forgiveness in your life, you will experience a spiritual and emotional transformation that goes beyond comprehension. Forgiveness frees you, strengthens you, and brings you closer to God's peace. Now, ask yourself, are you ready to live this transformation? Are you willing to forgive and let healing enter your life? Forgiveness is the key to a new life, and the decision to forgive is the door to your true freedom. The power of forgiveness is not just in freeing others, but, more importantly, in freeing yourself. If you've made it this far, you've already noticed the transformative power of forgiveness. Now, imagine the impact that more powerful teachings can have on your life. The journey of healing and spiritual growth doesn't end here. It's just begun. If you want to continue learning how to transform your life and deepen your faith, subscribe to the channel right now. Click the subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any revelation. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message of forgiveness, share it with them now. Together, we can spread this wisdom and help more people break free and live in peace. Your transformation begins with a simple click, so don't wait any longer. Do it now and join us on this journey of healing and spiritual transformation. See you in the next video. I have an invitation for you. If you are seeking transformation, healing, and profound learning about forgiveness, subscribe to the channel now. By subscribing, you'll be notified whenever new powerful videos like this are posted. And I want you to be with us every step of this journey. See you in the next video.